can be in any form, right? It could be competency improvement, it could be reduction in your customer complaints, it could be reduction in your rework percentage, repair percentage, non-conformities, right? Improving customer satisfaction. It could be any improvement. It could be 5S, it could be Kaizen, it could be anything, right? This is very generic, which is given in like 9001. Okay. Now, as far as IITF is concerned, okay, what IITF is saying that in clause number 10.2, non-conformity and corrective action, right? Here. Now my question to all of you is, what is the difference between a corrective action and a preventive action? First, because as per IETF now, as per the standards, here the corrective action means horizontal deployment. And what I would understand from all of you is, when we implement a corrective action, we consider that corrective action as a preventive action when we horizontally deploy it. Yes, Mahadev sir. Yes, Mahadev sir, do you want to say something?
No, sir.
Oh. Okay, anyone? Difference between corrective action and a preventive action? Yes, Praveen sir.
Okay, I let me explain.
Hello.
Yes, Mahadev sir. Yeah, just mute yourself. I'll provide an opportunity. Let first Praveen sir let him answer.
Correct action means action taken immediately after detection any non-conformity.
Okay.
Preventive action is the action taken to avoid the reoccurrence of this non-conformity.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Santosh sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please speak.
Yeah, corrective action is the action taken on the cause of detected non-conformity. And preventive action is the action taken on the cause of potential non-conformity. It is not detected.
Okay.
This is the basic difference between corrective action and...
Okay, okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Look, sir. When I say corrective action, okay, corrective action is the action taken on the non-conformity or on the failure mode to avoid the reoccurrence of the failure mode or the non-conformity. I'll repeat once again. Corrective action is the action taken on the non-conformity or on the failure mode to avoid the reoccurrence of the failure mode. Okay, and when I say preventive action, it is the potential action taken on the potential failure mode. Because when I say prevention, I don't know whether that particular failure mode is going to occur or not. So what I consider that as I consider that as a potential failure mode. Because if in case it occurs in future, I already have an action plan in place. So preventive action is avoiding the failure mode, okay, and that too by identifying the potential failure mode and taking the potential action or defining the potential action to avoid the potential failure mode. Because once the failure mode has occurred, any action taken after that is a corrective action only. But only if we are preventing the reoccurrence. Right? What generally we do when we conduct an AET, right? There is a 3D, which is what your containment action, right? In containment action, right, we generally consider that containment action as a corrective action many a times. You've seen many of the companies. And Then they consider correction action as a corrective action. So correction action is what? When we immediately rectify the problem, right? And what is containment action? We take an action in order to avoid like spreading the issue, like holding down like the container which is in transit, right? Quarantine the WIP material, quarantine the FGS stock. This is what is the containment action. Correction action is the immediate rectification. Corrective action is avoiding the reoccurrence of the failure mode, right? So here when I say ancient corrective action, so what standard is saying, whenever you are identifying a non-conformity, right, identify or define the corrective action, right? And for this, there are various methodologies which are given in the standard. First is your problem solving methodology, right? Now this problem solving can be, it depends on the organization, right? It could be YY analysis, it could be cause and effect, it could be 8D, it could be QC story, it could be 7 QC tools. So what problem solving methodology you are going to use to address the non-conformity? For that you need to have a documented process in your organization. This is a shall requirement for IT, right? Then the second point is error proofing, right? When I say error proofing, right, what is the difference? Now again I have a question. What is the difference between error proofing and a mistake proofing, and why do we call it as a POCA-UK when we mention in the control panel? Yes, anybody? Anyone? Yes, class. Can anyone answer this for me? If no, please reply in the chat box. I will answer this. Okay, since there is no response, I will respond to this. Look, when I say error proofing, right? Error proofing and mistake proofing. Error proofing is basically a prevention control, and mistake proofing is a detection control. Now, what ITF what ITF has defined in this particular 10.2.4 clause in error proofing is, an organization shall have a process for identifying an error proofing controls. Now, when I say error proofing controls, you need to have a process on how do you identify a prevention control, right? Now, again, we have discussed this, like what is prevention, right? What is the definition of prevention, right? And then what is definition of detection? When I say any, like when you take an action after the problem is detected or a problem has occurred, the problem could be failure mode or the problem could be a cause, right? When you take an action after the detection of a problem, of a failure mode or a cause, that is a detection control. So that we call it as a mistake proofing. And when we prevent the cause from occurring, right, or we prevent the failure mode from occurring, right, we call it as a error proofing controls or prevention controls. So we need to define a process for this. Then we have warranty management system, right? Now what standard is saying here, there is a concept called as NTF, no trouble found. So what ITF is saying is you need to define in your system when you say, like let us say for example, if you receive a complaint, and after receiving a complaint, we conduct an analysis and we declare to customer that this complaint is not accepted, right? So when you say this complaint is not accepted, what is the mechanism, what is the background, or what I would say, like what is the system or what is the method on which you define that this complaint is not accepted. So in a way you are claiming no trouble found. So you need to define you need to define in your system why the complaint is not accepted, and what is the reason, what is the methodology of claiming no trouble found, right? This is given in your warranty management system. Then in this particular clause there is field failure your like analysis. So whenever there is a complaint or if there is a field failure, right, if you receive a complaint from the field, right, how do you conduct the analysis, right, what is the mechanism for conducting a field failure analysis, and after the analysis is done, how are you communicating the analysis results and the action plan to your customer, right? That is what is expected in this particular clause, which is your 10.2.6, right? So this is what is given in your clause number 10.2. Now the last clause, subclause in this is 10.3, which is continual improvement. Now, now my question to all of you is, what is the difference between continual improvement and a continuous improvement? Can anyone answer this for me? Yes, Mahadev sir, please unmute yourself.
Continuous improvement is an ongoing improvement on daily basis, where continual improvement is a periodically planned improvement.
Okay. Okay. Right. So basically, yes, Ravi Shankar sir, when I say PDCA cycle is not a continual improvement. PDCA cycle is a combination of continual and a continuous improvement. Right? Continual improvement cycle, when you say it is SDCA cycle, standardized, do, check, act. I'll just tell you, let us say this, right? This is my continuous cycle, right? This I call it as PDSA, plan, do, study, act, okay? And when I say continual, it is like this.
Yes, right. Stepwise.
Right? Stepwise improvement. So this is my standardized, do, check and act, and combination of these two cycle is my PDCA. Because why I am saying this, you first of all set certain target, right? Then you sustain this, right? So like you have set the target, you have sustained it, right, for a defined period, then you check, right, whether you have achieved the target, right, and after you achieve it, then you improve. Just like our quality objectives, right, or our KPIs, what we do, we monitor it for a year's time, right, and then at the end of the year, right, when there is a KPI setting or an objective setting meeting with the top management and all the HOD, we review the KPIs and we see whether the target which was given last year have been achieved or not. So we check whether the objective has been sustained, and if there is an improvement, okay, we then for the next year we further go for a subsequent year improvement, which is we call it as a continual improvement, right? Now in standard, now there is a note given, right, for a continual improvement, which says that continual improvement, right, is only considered when the manufacturing processes are stable and capable. What does that mean? Can someone answer this for me?
Sir, can you repeat please your questions?
In continual improvement clause, there is a note given in the standard which says that continual improvement in manufacturing process is only when the process is stable and a process is capable. What does that mean? Or I'll put it this way, continual improvement is implemented in manufacturing process only when your process is stable and capable. I hope you have got my question. I'll repeat once again. Continual improvement project. Okay, continual improvement projects can be taken for the manufacturing process only when the process is stable and capable.
Stable and capable.
Any improvement is done only after attaining the basic customer requirements. Okay, but that is not answer to my question, sir.
Continual improvement can be done on the chronic type of problems, right?
So look, when I say continual improvement, look, continual improvement can be done for the chronic type of problems. I mean, no issue at all. But that is not answer to my question. What IDF is saying is, when your process is stable and capable, only then you can have an improvement, continual improvement project. Okay. Anyone? Yes, Arvind sir.
Only after the results are sustained and standardized.
Yes, as far as the intent of my question is concerned, you are absolutely correct. But that is not an answer to my question.
Okay.
CP and CPK should be as defined in the range. Okay. You are close to the answer, Rahul sir. Rahul sir, you are close to the answer. Yes, Santosh sir, please unmute yourself and speak.
When we are saying that the process is stable, it means there are no any special causes or assignable causes in the process, and the process in way within the capable process is capable. It means we can have the SPC study on that process. In that case, we can have the continual improvement on that particular process.
Okay, good. I'll add to what you have said, right? You are absolutely correct, right? What you have said. Now, here my point is, let us say, for example, if your customer, right, let us say Bajaj has asked you to maintain a CPK value of 1.67. Okay? Now, unless and until you achieve 1.67 in your process, and that will be possible only when your process is stable, right? If you are taking any project to improve the CPK value to 1.67, that will not be called as a continual improvement project. Once you achieve a CPK value of 1.67, right, which is Bajaj requirement, right, any project, let us say you have planned to achieve, to take the CPK value of 1.67 to, let us say, 1.72. That project will be termed as a continual improvement project. I have seen companies, they take project for improvement of CPK value, right, CP or like your CPK value, and they call it as a continual improvement project. But as per ITF, unless and until your process is stable and capable, you cannot consider that project as a continual improvement project. Okay?
Right. Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. So this is one point. Another point given in the standard is you can conduct continual improvement projects on your the FMEs, like working on the RPN values, working on the SOD values, working on the severity, right? You can like eliminate the causes. You can work on working on the failure modes, right? You can basically work on the Poka-Yoke, like it could be any other methodology as well. But there were like 2-3 major points which I wanted to tell you. One is this, your the stable and capable point which is given in the standard, and then the improvement in the process, like it could be reduction in waste or it could be reduction in variation, right? So waste reduction could be reduction in reduction in your rework percentage, repair percentage, PPM level, okay, customer complaints, it could be anything, right? Yes, Shashi Bhushan sir. Yes sir, do you have a question, Shashi sir?
We are speaking about the SPC data analysis and the CPK. And yesterday Shankar sir has also raised about the CPC under the CPK for the attributes data.
So CPK cannot be calculated for attribute data, sir.
I know there is a different methods for this. That is the chi-square method, CHI. The chi-square method is for the attributes data, and then all the attributes.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you, but that chi-square method comes into picture only when your output is attribute and your input is attribute, sir.
Yes,
That
yes.
is your hypothesis test, and that is used for cause validation, sir. That is when that method can be used only when you have identified a problem, or you have drilled down, or you have funneled down the problem, right? After you've done the problem solving, or you identify the cause, right? After you conduct the Viva analysis in order to verify the root cause or validate the root cause, this particular chi-square method can be used.
Yes, right. But the rating and the ranking method like this, if you have given the rating 1 to 10, this also can be addressed in the chi-square method, the chi-square analysis also. By giving the rating and the ranking on the Likert scaling, we can do this, the chi-square method. And as Ravi Shankar sir asked yesterday, but really you are right that CPK is only applicable for the variable integers, not for the attribute data.
Right. No, sir, it is applicable for the attribute data and not for the variable.
Yes, right.
Yes.
No, basically, is there any other methods? As I am knowing this, the chi-square method basically for this up to limited knowledge. But is there any other methods for this attributes data analysis?
Apart from chi-square method, sir?
Yes, right.
Apart
Chi-square
from
basically
chi-square
on the
method,
Likert.
there is a 2P test also, two proportion test,
Okay.
or a contingency table test also can be used if your output and your input is attribute.
Okay, sir.
These are all your hypotheses. Okay, sir?
Yeah, it's okay, sir. We can move ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so with this, I am done with clause number 10 and with IAK 16949/2016. Right? If you have any doubts, any queries as far as this standard is concerned, or any of the clause, or any of the point, or any of the sub-clause is concerned, please raise your hand and ask your questions. Or else we can move to the test on clause number 10, and then I will start with 14 and 45,000.